Spit Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This is the Spit Sports Show. Now, the Stanley Cup Final is over. The Florida Panthers have won the 2024 Stanley Cup. Now, this game just ended about half an hour ago. It's very fresh in my mind, and because of that, I want to talk more about the emotion of this game and more specifically towards the Edmonton side of it. I'm going to do a video probably soon on the Panthers, and their journey deserves a lot more research and look back into what they did to achieve this. But when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, it's really just like a basketball team in a way. They're a lot different than the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers are your pretty typical Stanley Cup champion. And that is no disrespect to them, by the way. They are a great team with great players everywhere. They have Kachuk, Barkov, Verhage, Bobrovsky all playing at the top of their game. Their depth pieces were phenomenal, and they were one of the best teams all year. And they had the Stanley Cup final experience. There's nothing wrong with the Florida Panthers winning the Stanley Cup, except for the fact that the Oilers just happened to employ the guy who has transcended the game of hockey, gotten decisively into the national media conversations as a household name, and overall is just on a different level of greatness than anyone else on the ice. And of course, I'm talking about Connor McDavid. And when your level of greatness, your transcendent talent is at the level of McDavid's, in these big games, the expectations aren't fair. Like, they're just not. Think about LeBron for all of those years. If you watched basketball, he didn't have a chance against the 17 Warriors, or to be honest, even the 15 Warriors as soon as Kyrie went down. But he was still expected to win that championship because he's LeBron James. Patrick Mahomes is expected to do that every year. Hockey, Gretzky was the favorite. His teams were a top 3 favorite to win the Stanley Cup every year of his prime. So when you're on that level of transcendent greatness, it's pretty simple. If you win, we remember everything good. If you lose, we remember everything bad. It's not fair, but it's just how we do things. When players are this great, we have to nitpick. And when they don't get it done on the biggest stage, it's just what you have to do. And Connor McDavid played a bad hockey game. It's really that simple. The entire game, he was trying to force everything. And listen, he's human. I totally get it. This is the most media attention, most eyes he's probably had on him in his entire life. He's on the biggest stage in hockey as the marquee attraction. And it made it look like he was trying to put on a show instead of letting the game come to him. I could count 9 plus times during the game he tried to make a move, and it just seemed like he was trying to make it so he individually won the game instead of having his teammates collect around him, having the puck come to him, and just playing Connor McDavid hockey. It felt like he was trying to be a different version of Connor McDavid than the one that got him here. He's not a selfish player by any means. McDavid isn't. He's obviously not. He just had the most assists in playoff history. But his play style in general, he has the puck a lot for sure, but a lot of his greatness is moving off the puck, creating separation from his man. And I didn't see that a lot tonight at all. Now, my buddy, he screamed out a lot of times, "This isn't the OHL." And the pub that we were sitting in, a lot of them started saying it too. So it wasn't just me who thought that McDavid was trying to do too much. It was kind of the whole crowd. And listen, one thing that he did do really well, and I'm going to get to a bunch of other things he did really well later, I promise, but he established a really good Oilers possession with about 11 minutes left. They got it deep into the zone. Him, Draisaitl, Hyman, Bouchard, Ekholm, the big five. They created some good pressure, and the Oilers sustained that pressure. They kept it hemmed in Florida's zone for the rest of the game until 2 minutes and 44 seconds left. And this is where I again have to lay down the hammer a little bit. In the last 3 minutes of the game, Connor McDavid just seemed overwhelmed. there was turnover after bad pass, after just Edmonton Oilers fans all around me groaning, saying, "What are you doing?" Because they've just never seen McDavid look this out of place before. Now, listen, I don't want to make it seem like I am putting this entire loss on Connor McDavid. There are a million other reasons the Edmonton Oilers did not win game 7. The coaching was terrible, and I want to talk about that for a second, especially at the end of the game. First of all, you can't put your big line out with 4 minutes left because you want them to be out there to finish the game when you have obviously your goalie pulled and an extra man. So if you put them on the ice with 4 minutes left, which is what they ended up doing, they're probably going to stay on the ice for about 2 minutes because it's game 7, Stanley Cup Final. You got to just go for it. If they come off the ice for a minute, they go back on the ice with a minute or less left. If the Oilers still have possession, they can't get a whistle, timeout, whatever, they still end up getting more time off of the ice and less time to impact the game. You want the superstars to come onto the ice with about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game because hopefully what they can do is get possession in the zone and just kind of stay on the ice for the rest of the game. And the Oilers got tremendously lucky with an offsides, which allowed McDavid and Draisaitl to come back on the ice with about a minute left, but might not have happened. It was bad coaching. And also, I hated the play that Knobloch designed at the end of that game. Doing a power play entry, like, I get it if you have a defensive zone faceoff for sure. When you're in the offensive zone, you're not going to send a single forechecker? Florida just was amazed. What the Oilers were hoping they'd do is just panic, right? And just flip it up the ice down the middle, and then the Oilers can start their power play breakout and hopefully get possession and set up and all of that. The Panthers have been in this position before. They have a lot of veteran, smart players, and all they do is just keep possession. And they got a couple empty net opportunities out of it. I think Edmonton should have lost the game before they got the puck back, to be totally honest with you. That was an insane coaching decision. When you're in the offensive zone, you know what you do? You go for the puck. You play physically and you get it off of them. You pull your goalie and then you're in the zone anyways. You don't do all of this fancy go back into your zone, 2 drop passes, McDavid swerves in. It's too much, and it takes too much time when you only have a minute 32 minutes left. It was bad. And when they finally got possession, like I said, there was just over a minute left, and McDavid had bad turnover after bad turnover, 2 of them. Draisaitl had another one, and that was it. They lost, and the Florida Panthers were the Stanley Cup champions. Now, he played a bad game 7. There's no way around it. No one who's seen Connor McDavid play over the years could watch that game and say, yeah, he got it done. No one thinks that. But what is most interesting is what happened after the game with him. And obviously, congratulations to him. He won the Conn Smythe Trophy. First player on a losing team to do that in, I think it was 20 years. And most of the time, if not all of the time, I think it was all the time, it's goalies on the losing team who end up winning it. I don't think a player's done it. And if they have, it hasn't been for a long time if I don't know about it. And I totally get the argument for him to get it. He had the most points adjusted for era in playoff history. He had the most assists in playoff history for any era. Overall, obviously, he was the leader of the team. He was the best player. And I have no issue with him winning the Conn Smythe. But it should have been Sergei Bobrovsky, guys. It's not finals MVP. Did Bob play his best hockey in the finals? No, especially the 3-game spell the Oilers had. He was bad. But first 3 games, he was great. And he stole 2 series before the Panthers got here. The Rangers won for sure. Boston, you could argue they just didn't have enough scoring, but still, he played unbelievable. And, you know, he played great against the Lightning too, but I don't bring that up because I think Florida was just the better team. So it's hard for me to argue he stole the series. And you could argue that for Boston too, but he definitely stole the series against the Rangers, and he was great tonight, unbelievable tonight, and he was unbelievable in the first 3 games. So I give it to Bob. Add on to that the fact that McDavid wasn't the best player on his own team for the first 2 rounds for sure. I would argue first 2.5 rounds. I thought Draisaitl was just better than he was. And you get me, I'm not complaining, but Bobrovsky would have been my vote. So with all of that said, we have to ask the question, where does this leave him in terms of his legacy and how he's going to be looked at from this place forward? And to be honest with you, it's a fascinating resume, but it's not unlike anything we've seen before. It is unlike anything we've seen before in hockey. Now, the last one that I can remember who had a situation like this was Ovechkin. He had a long time where he didn't win the Stanley Cup. He won his first one 13 years after he was drafted. But with Ovechkin, he wasn't on this level of greatness. He wasn't winning 4 Hart trophies. He wasn't on national media talking about, is this guy the greatest hockey player ever? Now, he was big. He was huge. But again, there's levels to greatness. And I think McDavid's on a different level than he is. And it feels like with his just talent, it should just come with a Stanley Cup. But if it's not this year, when's it going to be? And if he doesn't end up winning one, now I hope he does, and I don't know if he will. I'd have to think about it. But if he doesn't, I think the closest comp we have in sports is Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds, in many people's eyes, including mine, is the greatest baseball player of all time. But he never won a World Series. And his legacy is obviously tainted by steroids, but just take that out of it. He was the best hitter anyone had ever seen. He had a season where he was walked with the bases loaded. They were so scared he was going to hit a grand slam or an RBI. Like, he was on a different level of greatness, but his teams just couldn't quite get there. And how was he looked at differently because of the steroids? Probably very differently. But if he didn't have those steroids, I think he would have a very similar legacy to Connor McDavid right now. Now, I think he's a winner. I think he's a champion anyways. I think he's an unbelievable talent. But where this leaves his legacy is up to him. Gretzky lost the Stanley Cup Final. Does anyone remember it? I do, because I'm a hockey history nerd, but probably the general fan won't. It was 1993, by the way, against the Montreal Canadiens. Last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup. Anyways, I think he's a winner. I think he's going to get it done eventually. I hope he gets it done eventually, I should say. But for now, it's a complicated legacy, but one that he can correct and turn into inarguably a top 3 player ever. I think he already is a top 5 player ever, but to crack that top 3 is hard. Gordie Howe and Bobby Orr were next level hockey players, but he's not someone I would bet against. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I want to know, what do you guys think happened in Game 7? What was the main reason Florida Panthers got it done? Where do you guys think this leaves Connor McDavid's legacy, his reputation? Please let me know. As always, I'd love to read your guys' comments, so please leave something down there. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Please subscribe. We are just over 350 subscribers on the Spit Sports Show. Big stuff happening. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next. Peace out.